They are nothing but a passing curiosity. The words echoed through the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, their meaning as final as the silence that followed. A sea of the galaxy's most enlightened minds, composed of species with centuries of collective wisdom and technological superiority, sat in a room that hummed with an unsettling sense of calm. Yet, in the midst of their discussion, the human race, a species from a pale blue that at the edge of the known universe, was dismissed in a single breath. Their ships, primitive and laughable, their weapons crude and ineffective, were deemed a joke by the most advanced beings in the galaxy. And they were wrong. The humans had been observed for years now, their growing space-faring ambitions impossible to ignore, though few ever bothered to truly understand them. The human fleet, made up of antiquated designs and makeshift technologies, had begun to spread into nearby systems, boldly encroaching upon the territories of more powerful, established empires. Yet, despite their boldness, it was clear to the Council that humanity's ships were little more than toys. No one was worried. After all, what could a species that had only recently learned to travel the stars possibly do against the immense forces of the Galactic Council? The Council members, from the regal Uthrix, with their crystalline bodies, to the highly intelligent Karish, whose minds could manipulate the fabric of space, exchanged glances of amusement. A few of them even chuckled, their laughter filling the room like the hum of an ancient engine. The human fleet was at best an inconvenience, a distraction, a spectacle to entertain the bored, but ultimately inconsequential. "How long before they burn out like the others before them?" asked one representative, a gray-skinned Zorvak, with a voice like gravel scraping against metal. His eyes, the size of small moons, gleamed with disinterest. "They have no more advanced technology than the Iridrians did when they attempted their galactic expansion centuries ago," another council member, the elegant Azali, added dismissively. "The humans will stall, fight a few skirmishes, and then fade away like all the others." Captain Leah Westbrook, the only human representative in the room, stood unmoving, a lone figure amongst the sea of towering aliens. Her expression was cold, steely, as though she had already heard these words 1,000 times before. But the sting of their arrogance never dulled. She had come here, to the heart of the galaxy, to deliver a message, a warning of something far greater than what anyone could have anticipated. Yet, each time she opened her mouth, her voice was drowned out by the mockery, the laughter, the arrogance. "The Vurum are coming," she said again, her voice cutting through the noise. "They are relentless, a race that has already destroyed entire civilizations, and they are headed for us. For you, for all of us." The room fell silent for a heartbeat, a fleeting moment of hesitation, as if her words had, just for an instant, sparked something in their minds. But that spark quickly fizzled out. The Council had no time for the wild tales of a species so young and unrefined. One of the most powerful members of the Council, a sleek and serpentine Xyloth, waved a hand dismissively. "We have already faced countless threats," the Xyloth said, his voice smooth as liquid silk. "Our defenses are impenetrable. Do not waste our time, human." Leah's eyes narrowed, her frustration barely contained. "Underestimate them, and you will regret it. You cannot prepare for what you do not understand." But it was too late. The damage had already been done. The Council had made its decision. The humans, with their crude ships and primitive weaponry, were a passing curiosity. They were not a threat. As Leah left the Council chamber, she knew the truth. The Vurum were already here, and they would not care about the arrogance of the Galactic Council. They would only care about one thing: the annihilation of everyone who stood in their way. And if the Council would not listen to her now, she would make them listen when it was too late. The humans had been dismissed, but they would rise, and the galaxy would never be the same again. You cannot outrun the inevitable. Captain Leah Westbrook stood before the grand hollow display in the council chamber, her pulse steady despite the storm of emotion raging within her. The faces of the galaxy's most powerful beings, alien species whose technological prowess was beyond imagination, remained fixed in their mocking indifference. Not a single one of them had flinched when she delivered her warning. They had dismissed her, laughed at her, and now, she realized with cold clarity, they would pay the price for their arrogance. Her hands clenched into fists as the holoscreen flickered to life behind her, showing the unmistakable signs of the Vurum's advance. The reports were clear. Entire civilizations had fallen in the blink of an eye. The Vurum, an unstoppable force from a distant corner of the galaxy, showed no mercy. Entire star systems were annihilated before anyone even knew they had arrived. There was no communication, no negotiation, only devastation. And they were heading straight for the heart of the galaxy. Leah's voice rang out, sharp and unyielding as she faced the council once more. I told you, the Vurum are not a threat you can ignore. They are coming for you, coming for us all. The Azali representative, the one who had first laughed at the humans, raised an elegant hand. We are aware of the threat you speak of, Captain, but rest assured, we have already mobilized the fleets. The Vurum will not breach our defenses. This galaxy has faced far worse. Leah's eyes flashed with a mixture of disbelief and anger. You think your fleets can stop them? You think your defenses will hold against something you can't even comprehend? Her voice softened, now laced with frustration. You think you can fight something that doesn't need ships or weapons to destroy you? The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. But the silence was short-lived, quickly replaced by the confident, smug expression of the Zorvok representative. You forget your place, human. You come to us, a species barely out of its infancy, and expect us to bow to your warnings? Our fleets have held against the fiercest empires. Do you truly believe your fragile ships can change the course of the galaxy? The mockery stung, but Leah stood tall, refusing to let her resolve waver. She had seen the Vurum's wrath firsthand. She had witnessed the complete annihilation of an entire civilization, planet, people, and all, in mere hours. There was no force in the galaxy that could stand against them. Not the Council. Not the Karish. Not the Uthrix. You won't believe it until it's too late, she muttered, turning away from the Council. But by then, the galaxy will be nothing but ash. As she left the chamber, Leah's mind raced with calculations. Time was running out. The Vurum would reach the core of the galaxy within weeks, maybe days, and when they did, no one would be ready. Humanity had its fleet, small, scrappy, and underestimated, but it was ready. Ready to face the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen. But the Council, with all its power, was too blind to see it. Out on the edge of known space, the human fleet was already preparing for war. They would make their stand. But the question wasn't whether they could stop the Vurum. It was whether they could stop the galaxy from tearing itself apart in the process. As Leah sat at the helm of her ship, the Vigilance, watching the stars streak by, she made a promise to herself. She would fight for humanity's survival. And she would fight for the survival of the galaxy, even if it meant standing alone. But she knew something the Council didn't. The Vurum didn't just destroy planets. They eradicated everything. Their true weapon wasn't their fleet. It was the complete annihilation of hope itself. And the galaxy? It was already losing hope. And that, Leah knew, was the real danger. Underestimate us, and you will regret it. The sudden silence in the room was deafening. No one expected the attack to come so soon, least of all the Galactic Council. They had written off humanity as a mere inconvenience, a species struggling to stay relevant in a galaxy dominated by civilizations far older and more powerful. Yet, in the span of a few hours, that perception would change forever. The first strike came from the Vigilance, the flagship of humanity's fleet. The Council had thought it nothing more than a relic, an old warship with outdated weaponry, certainly not capable of challenging the might of the galactic empires. But they were wrong. The Vigilance cut through the void with precision and speed that left the Azali and the Uthrix scrambling to react. In a matter of moments, the ship launched its first salvo of missiles, each one an elegant display of human ingenuity, designed not for brute force, but for pinpoint destruction. The target? A heavily fortified Azali communications station on the fringes of their territory, vital for the smooth coordination of their fleets. The missile struck with unerring accuracy, breaching the station's defenses and igniting a chain reaction that crippled the entire facility. The destruction was complete. The station was gone, reduced to dust and debris in the blink of an eye. Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy, each one worse than the last. A human ship had struck, and it had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The Galactic Council scrambled to make sense of what had just happened. "Impossible," muttered one of the Karish representatives, their elongated fingers tapping rapidly on a holopad, their glowing blue eyes scanning the data. The ship was supposed to be a joke. How could it have breached our defenses so easily? The council members stared at each other in disbelief. The Zorvok, who had been so confident just days before, now found himself speechless, unable to comprehend how such a seemingly insignificant force could carry out such a devastating strike. Leah Westbrook was right. The humans were more than they seemed. The Vigilance didn't stop there. The next strike came days later, targeting a heavily defended Uthrix outpost located near the galactic core. The outpost, built to withstand the most advanced weaponry known to the galaxy, stood as a symbol of Uthrix superiority. But humanity's forces, armed with technology far more cunning than anyone had anticipated, infiltrated the outpost's perimeter without a single shot fired. Within minutes, the entire facility was in chaos. Power grids were shut down, weapons systems malfunctioned, and communication lines were severed. The Uthrix fleet, still waiting to receive orders from their now disconnected command center, could do nothing as the human fleet made its exit. And just as before, the humans vanished into the vastness of space. The Council, once so confident in their ability to dismiss the human threat, was now scrambling to react. The members convened urgently, their faces grim with realization. It was no longer a matter of whether humanity could challenge the galaxy's power. It was a matter of how long they could ignore the truth. The Vigilance had struck once again, and this time they were not alone. Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy of smaller human ships, using the same tactics: hit hard, hit fast, and vanish without a trace. The galaxy was in chaos. What was once a laughing matter had turned into a nightmare. The Vurum may have been the immediate threat, but the humans, with their cunning and resilience, had become a force of their own. As the Council debated their next steps, Leah Westbrook's warning echoed in their minds: "Underestimate us, and you will regret it." But the true weight of her words hadn't yet settled. They would soon learn just how deep humanity's resolve ran. And by the time they understood the true scale of the threat, it would already be too late. The first blood had been drawn, and now there was no turning back. You cannot fight what you cannot see. The Galactic Council's chambers buzzed with an energy that was as palpable as it was unsettling. After weeks of humiliation, with every new attack leaving their fleets in disarray, a deep sense of fear had begun to settle over the room. They had underestimated humanity. They had ignored every warning, every indication that the humans were far more capable than they had ever imagined. And now they were paying the price. But still, they couldn't see the enemy. Despite the destruction left in their wake, the humans continued to vanish, without a trace, leaving behind nothing but smoke and wreckage. No fleet was able to track them. No sensor array could detect them. The Vigilance and its companions appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the void. The Council's most advanced tracking systems had failed. Their brightest minds were stumped. No one understood how the humans managed to slip through their defenses so easily, and even fewer could explain how they managed to hit such vital, seemingly impossible targets. "This is not coincidence," muttered the Xyloth representative, his face lined with frustration. "They know exactly where to strike. They understand us better than we understand ourselves." The Karish, their blue glowing eyes filled with anxiety, leaned forward in their seat. "We are being outmaneuvered by a fleet that shouldn't even exist. This ghost fleet is using tactics we cannot fathom. We have technology capable of detecting entire fleets, yet these humans slip right through our grasp undetected." As the council scrambled to assess the situation, an undercurrent of panic spread through the room. They had never encountered an enemy like this, one that couldn't be tracked, one that could hit with pinpoint accuracy and vanish before retaliation could even be initiated. This was no longer about just defending against an invasion. This was a war of attrition, a battle against an invisible enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. Leah Westbrook's words from the very first day rang in their minds, louder now than ever before. "Underestimate us, and you will regret it." As reports flooded in from the front lines, the council saw the full extent of humanity's reach. The Vigilance had crippled a dozen critical supply depots, hidden on the outer edges of the galaxy, where the council thought their defenses were impenetrable. Human ships, small and seemingly insignificant, struck swiftly at trade routes, preventing the flow of resources essential to the council's war machine. Worse yet, they did it without warning and without detection. The Vurum, an existential threat so fierce it had already begun wiping out entire star systems, had paused in their relentless assault. They, too, were confounded by the human forces, caught off guard, hesitant to continue their rampage through a galaxy that was suddenly far more dangerous than they had realized. What made humanity's tactics so effective wasn't just their technology, though that played a part. It was their ingenuity, their ability to adapt, to think differently than the rigid, predictable minds of the Council species. While the Galactic Council spent its time fine-tuning its fleets, humanity had developed a style of warfare that was impossible to predict, impossible to counter. Their weapons weren't just more advanced, their minds were. Their fleets were small, modular, and decentralized, making it almost impossible for the Council to hit them all at once. The true weapon of humanity was not just the Vigilance or any of their ships. It was the unseen edge they wielded, their ability to remain unseen, to strike with surgical precision, and then vanish. And in that uncertainty, they had created something the Council could not fight: fear. In the deepest, darkest recesses of the Council's mind, a growing realization settled in. The humans weren't just a problem. They were the problem. The Vurum might have been a physical threat, but humanity's unpredictability, their ability to wage war without rules, was something the Council had never prepared for. As the Council's debates became increasingly frantic, one thing was certain. They had missed something. A piece of the puzzle that, if left unchecked, would destroy everything they held dear. The humans had become the galaxy's greatest unknown, an unseen edge that had already shifted the balance of power. And the worst part? The humans were just getting started. It's never been about technology. It's about survival. The battle had already begun to shift, and the Galactic Council could feel it in their bones. What they had once dismissed as an anomaly, as a fleeting nuisance, had blossomed into an undeniable force. Humanity was not just making its mark on the galaxy. It was changing the course of the war. And despite their advanced fleets and powerful alliances, the Council was losing control. The reports came in faster now, flashes of destruction lighting up every corner of the galaxy. The Vigilance had struck again, and this time, it wasn't alone. The human fleet, once thought to be isolated and fragile, had organized itself into a ruthless, fluid force that no one had seen coming. Smaller, more agile ships now acted in concert with their larger counterparts, launching surprise attacks that crippled entire star systems. Human warships were now working together like a pack of predators, striking where it hurt most, and then vanishing before the enemy could even react. The Council was on the defensive. No longer was the question whether humanity could hurt them. The question now was how much damage they could absorb before they were utterly broken. Entire military divisions had fallen apart as the humans dismantled supply lines, decimated communications, and crippled fleets from within. Their ships no longer simply evaded capture. They disabled entire systems without ever firing a shot, sowing chaos and confusion among their enemies. It wasn't just the humans' military tactics that had turned the tide. It was their strategy. While the Council was bogged down in endless debates, humanity had been systematically and quietly reshaping the power dynamics of the galaxy. The Vurum, once considered the greater threat, had slowed their advance, their relentless momentum interrupted by human tactics that they hadn't anticipated. For the first time, the galaxy was beginning to understand the true cost of underestimating humanity. On the front lines, the Vurum were no longer sweeping through systems with impunity. Their once unstoppable forces now found themselves in a tactical stalemate, caught in a war of attrition they hadn't planned for. Every time they thought they had pushed humanity back, they were met with another strike from the shadows, another ship vanishing into the dark expanse of space, leaving nothing but debris and disarray in its wake. The Council scrambled to react, but it was clear they were too late. Their top generals were reduced to frantic calls for reinforcements, their fleet scattered and unable to regroup. The Vurum, who had once seemed invincible, now appeared unsure, their attacks increasingly erratic. The humans were doing what the Council never thought possible, not just surviving, but thriving in the face of galactic domination. In the midst of this chaos, Leah Westbrook stood aboard the Vigilance, her eyes scanning the stars beyond. The tide had turned. They had made their stand, and humanity was beginning to show the galaxy that they were not simply survivors, they were warriors. But this was only the beginning. She knew it, and so did the rest of the human fleet. Every victory, no matter how small, was a message to the Council, to the Vurum, and to the rest of the galaxy. Humanity was not to be ignored. "We are the storm," Leah murmured under her breath, her voice carrying the weight of a promise she had made to herself and her people. As the fleet prepared for its next assault, a new sense of unity spread across the human ranks. This was no longer about isolated strikes or small victories. This was about shifting the balance of power, about taking back what was theirs, and showing the galaxy that humanity would never back down, no matter the odds. The Galactic Council had thought it could control the galaxy. The Vurum had thought they could annihilate everything in their path. But now, the galaxy was awakening to a truth it couldn't deny. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and the tides were no longer in their favor. Soon, the Council would have to face the full force of that truth. And when they did, they would learn the hard way that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships, or their technology, or even their cunning. It was their unyielding will to fight. And that was something no one, no matter how powerful, could ever truly defeat. In the end, we didn't conquer the galaxy. We simply made them fear us. The galaxy was on the brink of collapse. The Galactic Council, once a powerful and unified force, now found itself fractured, its members unable to agree on how to face the escalating threat of humanity's ghost fleet. Their once pristine reputation had been shattered. Each new attack by the humans, precise and devastating, further chipped away at their sense of invincibility. The Vurum, the supposed existential threat, had been halted, but now a new threat had emerged, one the Council had never anticipated. But the worst was yet to come. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it was capable of. It had crippled the Uthrix, defeated the Azali in ways they couldn't understand, and disrupted the Vurum's unstoppable march across the galaxy. It had done all of this without firing a single shot in retaliation, without giving anyone a clear target to strike. And then, just as suddenly as it had risen, humanity vanished. The Council was left in a state of stunned silence. The reports were absurd. The human ships, including the Vigilance, had disappeared from their radar without a trace. Their fleets, once so calculated and feared, were gone. Not a single ship, not a single soldier, not a single scrap of debris remained. It was as if humanity had simply evaporated into the vast emptiness of space. At first, the Council thought it was a trick, another human ploy to play with their minds. But then weeks turned into months and still nothing. There were no human ships left to fight, no fleets to track. There was only the quiet realization that in their arrogance, the Council had underestimated a species with the ability to vanish from existence at will. Leah Westbrook stood on the bridge of the Vigilance, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. She had led the charge, had warned the galaxy of what was coming, and had watched humanity fight with a ferocity that no one had thought possible. But now the war was over. The battle was won not by force, but by humanity's ability to make the impossible look easy. "Are we sure we're done?" asked a voice behind her. It was Lieutenant Carrick, his tone uncertain. Leah turned to face him, her eyes hard with the weight of their decision. "It's over. The Council thinks they won by making us disappear, but they're wrong. We're not their problem anymore." The truth was, humanity hadn't needed to stay. The war had never been about defeating the Council or the Verum. It had been about sending a message. The galaxy was not theirs to conquer. The humans were a force that could never be ignored, no matter how insignificant they might seem. They had proven that they could fight and win when no one else believed in them. But now their message was complete. The Council had learned the hard way that the only way to win against humanity was to never challenge them in the first place. The galaxy was left to rebuild, to heal from the devastation that had been wrought. The Verum, once so sure of their dominance, had retreated into the unknown, too wary of humanity's reach to press further. The Council, fractured and afraid, knew that they would never again have the same control over the galaxy they once did. But they also knew that humanity had not truly gone. The fear of the humans, their unpredictability, their capacity for destruction, would linger for generations. The galaxy's greatest minds would never forget how a species once dismissed as weak had turned the tide of the war, and then vanished as quietly as it had come. Leah knew the truth that the galaxy could never admit. Humanity had left, but its mark would never fade. The Council had been humbled, the Verum defeated, and the balance of power had shifted. And if the galaxy ever forgot the lesson of the Vigilance, the humans could always return whenever they were needed. But for now, humanity was gone, and that in itself was the greatest victory.